In the quintessential center of culinary delights that is Louisiana, you'll find a shop near Baton Rouge that goes by the name of Hopkin's Delicatessen. The shopkeep has been in business since 1903, at least that's what the sign says. The truth is that the shop and the butcher who runs it have only been around since 1978. Yet the butcher knew that to get a better crowd to come in, you had to fool them into thinking that it was classier than it truly was. Jacob Hopkins was well known for his delicious cuts of meat. He was able to fund himself from just a few sausage links a week. Now, with his business booming and never seeming to run out of steam, Jacob had found that he could sell the most exotic of meats, from ostrich to gator to free-range chicken. Hopkins sold it all. Yet there was a particular market for which Hopkins kept under the table, almost quite literally. You see, in 1978, it was much easier to get away with killing a drifter, as no one went looking for them. This was something that Mr. Hopkins found out rather early in his life, and at a ripe age of 24, when his butcher shop was barely even a whisper of a thought in his mind, young Jacob had been doing a lot of cheap labor. As it was difficult in those days for a black man to run a business that wasn't less than savory, yet he always had a dream of running a kitchen, a restaurant, anything that would keep him near the finest of flavors the world of cuisine had to offer him. It was late November when he passed a dark alleyway on his way to one of his many odd jobs. He was unassuming, wearing somewhat tattered work clothes, but doing his best to scrape by. His shoes had holes, his shirt was stained, and his hat was falling apart. This never discouraged him from dreaming about his own fancy restaurant. It only served to make it bigger. In America, anything was possible for a black man, something that he was finding out. Being in Louisiana helped to cultivate his sense of taste, with the blends of flavor, the scents, and the spices. Jacob Hopkins' mind was on food when a man whispered to him in the shadows under the Louisiana lights. The man's face was obscured by a baseball cap. He didn't speak, only gestured to Jacob to follow him. The man, as far as Jacob could tell, was white, and he didn't want trouble, but curious, he followed the man. The man led Jacob deeper into the alleyway, where he stopped and said, "How would you like to make a good deal of cash, fast?" Jacob, never being one to miss an opportunity to work, was even more curious now. Would he have to smuggle drugs like in the movies? Would he have to rough someone up? Would he have to escort someone? Jacob had done 2 of these things, and much, much more in order to make some cash. He wasn't proud of it, nor was he particularly guilty. He was just a man strapped for cash. The man continued, "My name is Azariah Montgomery, and I have a business proposition. I need something taken care of, and you look like the kind of man who can get things done. Can I rely on you to dispose of something for me?" "Like what?" was the reply. "Like a dead man's body. It needs to be done in a particular fashion. It's to send a message, and we need someone to make the preparations." Jacob paused for a moment, unsure of what to say next. The man held out a large stack of bills, seeming to range from hundreds to 20s. It was more cash than Jacob had seen in his whole life working odd jobs, enough to start a business for himself. His own restaurant. Payment up front if you agree. If you don't say yes, there'll be plenty of other mooks out there who will gladly take the cash for the job. I've already had 6 hopefuls and 6 naysayers, but you look like a smart kid. Think you can handle the job? Jacob could only see the future, and the fat stack of cash, and Without knowing what else to say, he took the man's money and shook his hand. "How you need it to be done, sir?" asked Jacob with a grin. "You know anything about how to cut meat?" The man eyed him thoroughly, waiting for a response. "I don't know much other than what my mama taught me about butchering a pig, but I'm a quick learner." Jacob held his head up, nodding to the man, showing his newfound confidence in the plan, never even thinking about the moral implications. "Hey, that's a good answer, kid. I like that. Follow me. Your future awaits. Oh, and one other thing. Welcome to the family business." Time ticked faster than ever before. The Montgomery family was originally based in Louisiana, he learned later that night, as morticians. They developed a way of smuggling in drugs and other stuff through the coffins. However, every once in a blue moon, someone would need to disappear. This was easy for the family. They owned their own personal graveyard. Yet there was the occasion when an offense was so large it required retribution. Jacob had been spotted some time ago, Isaiah explained, when he had been working in a soup kitchen. They saw the way that he worked with the food and decided that he was the guy to seek out. A man with little means and big dreams was easy pickings for their line of work, and it paid off in many ways. Isaiah brought Jacob to a nearby storage house, which smelled rank. But Isaiah explained since they had found a base of operations inside of a slaughterhouse, the smell of blood would mask the smell of dead bodies. It was a brilliant plan. And it was, by all means, a delicate process. This is the first time that we've ever needed someone like you to help us. See this man? Isaiah gestured to a man who was strung up to a meat hook upside down, his clothes missing, his throat slit. He thought he could come offend the boss, Papa Monty as we call him. Turns out the guy's been trying to get into our operation, working for the police. When Papa Monty found out, he ordered us to hold a big feast in honor of their hard work and determination. So we wanted you to serve up something good for Papa Monty to serve his guests. The smell of blood and flesh was not unfamiliar to Jacob, and by all means he should have retched from the sight of a man naked upside down like a slaughtered pig. Yet something else stirred inside him instead. Something deep and dark inside of him, which made him bypass the primal urge to run. It was an urge he could not seem to satisfy in life, something which he could never explain. It was opportunity. Plain and simple. Jacob wanted the opportunity to show his worth through cooking, so he could live his passion in making a great name for himself. The American dream. He was living it. I've got a great idea for it, too. It's going to be so good, even you'll want a taste of it when you smell the heavenly aroma rising out of that pot, Mr. Montgomery, laughed Jacob, never taking his eyes off the naked man's body, looking for the best cuts of meat. That's what we like to hear, kid. Someone who not only does his work well, but with a gusto befitting a master. Now, when you get to the bones, we may run into an issue. The voice came from behind Jacob. It belonged to a somewhat older man, in his mid-50s. He had a clean-shaven face, full set of dark hair and piercing blue eyes. Standing before Jacob was Papa Montgomery. Papa Montgomery, how are you, sir? Asked Isaiah politely. I'm doing well, better now that you've found such a perfect man for this job. I'm proud of you, Isaiah. You've proven time and again that you're a valued asset to our team, and you'll be rewarded greatly for your contributions, that I guarantee. The same will go for you, Mr. Hopkins, if you show me what you've got what it takes. The old man held out his hand to Jacob and shook his hand in a tight vice-like grip. Nice to meet you, Mr. Montgomery. Jacob smiled naturally. still awestruck by the opportunity to lay his hands on the body and get to work. "Please, call me Papa Montgomery, everyone does." "Well, Papa Montgomery, you don't have to worry yourself none about these bones. I've got an idea for a broth that will flavor the meat so well that you'll be asking for more. I'm thinking of making a sausage out of the fella and making a flame pot of gumbo for y'all to serve. Just need the key ingredient, that's all." Jacob was practically bouncing on his feet, looking with bright eyes. "And what, pray tell, is that key ingredient?" Papa asked, smiling now. Jacob's enthusiasm was infectious, it seemed. "A big old pot of Louisiana love," Jacob roared, laughing. After showing Jacob the basics, he took off on his own, making the most delicious meats in all of Louisiana, and for 35 years, he's been making the same cuts, with the same amount of gusto as when he first started. His flavors are always getting better, and his cuts are always the same. Everything in the butcher shop is perfect. He still works with those morticians, and they use him much more often, supplying him with far more than the ostrich and buffalo. The police will never know. The ones who investigate disappear oddly, never to be heard from again. Yet Hopkin's Delicatessen always caters at the funerals to remind them who was really in charge. So when you go, be sure to try the gumbo and jambalaya. Their kick is the best you'll ever taste. Just be sure that when you go there, go with a family or a friend. Because if you go there alone, there'll be no telling what you'll come out as.